Thank you, Max and Tim, and good morning, everybody. I have to say, I was very relieved that reforming the planning rules was not the first most popular item, because I have to say I am profoundly unqualified to deal with that topic. And you might be disappointed to learn that actually I don't have many slides on that. But what I really wanted to do was set the context for UK life sciences. It is almost 2 years now since John Bell and I were involved in a program to build a long-term strategy for the UK. And I would say, having got off to a slow start, I think we are now beginning to get some real momentum. And as you will hear from the two ministers today, there is real governmental support behind this. And one of the things that John and I wanted to make sure was that this was not a plan that was admired on the shelf, but was a plan that was implemented and delivered on the potential that the UK has. No longer do we want to talk about the potential of UK as a scientific superpower. We want to talk about the reality of it. And whereas I think it is so important that we are now beginning to make progress. And when it comes to accountability, to hold the government to account, to hold the industry to account, hold us all to account of what are we doing to improve the environment. We have, in business terms now created the transparency involved. So the ultimate accountability for the delivery of the life sciences vision rests with two Secretaries of State, the Secretary of State for Health and the Secretary of State for Business, co-chaired by Pascal Soriot from AstraZeneca. And in the last two Life Science Council meetings we've had, the last one was attended in full by the Chancellor, and the one before that was attended in full by the Prime Minister. So I think don't doubt that there is the government commitment to deliver on this is significant. And I should also say, recognizing that there could be a period of parliamentary upheaval in the next 12 or 18 months. This life science vision is a non-political document and is supported right across Parliament. So even if there were to be a change of government, I think we're confident that there will be continuity and consistency. It might be called something different, but I think the content will be broadly the same. So as this says, it's a 10-year plan, and by definition, it's not linked to the political cycle. And what we have tried to do is to unify the UK science base in a way where the whole is significantly more productive than the individual component pieces. And what you see here are the three pieces that we're attempting to unify. There is no accident that the NHS is at the centre. When anybody looks from the outside and says, what is unique about the UK and why is the UK so attractive? A lot of it comes back to, we've got a single hospital system. You've got a hospital system that carries people from birth till death and everything in between. You have a unique data system that compiles all of those lifetime experiences. And it is unique. And there is no other system in the world that has those attributes. And one of the things that is difficult at the moment is the challenges that exist within the health system today is that, trying to make sure that we've got the right balance between the things that need to be done as a matter of urgency today, backlogs, waiting lists, the ambulance system, while at the same time investing in the future. And I think we have now, through the Life Science Council and other vehicles, have got the NHS to recognise that the NHS in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, does need to look different. Supporting that is the outstanding academic and scientific resources that we have through the university system, none more powerful than Oxford and Cambridge. But the combination of the university sector with the national scientific agencies, UKRI, the Medical Research Council, NIHR and so on. How do we make sure that those resources are all directed towards the issues and the challenges that we need to address? And I'll come back to that in a moment. And then thirdly, to connect with business and tangible investment, both investment from companies that are here today and inward investment, and to make sure that companies want to start here, they want to grow here, they want to invest, they want to list, and they want to become sizable companies in the UK. And that is what is now beginning to unite, not just the life science sector in this UK, but the financial services sector in the UK. And I'm spending just as much time now on the reform of the pension system as I am on life sciences, because we have got to release the investment in this country to support UK companies. And, as I think many of you probably know, almost 100% of the capital that is behind, life science investment in the UK is largely imported. And we're not a capital poor country. We are a capital rich country, and we've got to divert our resources. And by investment, I mean, not just investments in science, but also the investment in physical property. And I can assure this audience that when John and I talk about the implementation of the life science strategy, the capacity to execute on science and research is just as important as clinical trials and the scientific experiments. I think you'll be reflecting on this through the course of the day, which is, this is an unbelievably exciting, entrepreneurial, innovative sector. The more time that I spend out and about, and I do spend a lot of time now in Oxford, Cambridge, and London and other parts of the country, I am overwhelmed by the creativity that we have, and there's just a few statistics here that demonstrate that. And while in many ways the Oxford, Cambridge, London triangle is really the engine of science in this country, it is actually very diversified. We are spawning naturally, leveling up. We don't have to have a strategy that tries to push science and innovation in different parts of the country. There is a natural pull, and there are a series of places of expertise. They're beginning to emerge around the country. The Northeast, for example, had a phenomenal contribution to COVID and the vaccine manufacturing and so on. And there's some real deep skills up there, and I think that we've got to make sure that, the regions around the UK, that we understand, the specific skill bases, so we're not trying to duplicate activities across the country, but are really deepening and concentrating those skills so that we have clear competitive advantage and we are attractive to everybody around the globe. Now, it's not all perfect, and I think you've see here a very significant set of packages of announcements that the Chancellor made, only a few weeks ago. And on the surface, the money that continues to flow is quite significant, especially if you think of the government money in this sector is multiplied many times over by the private investment that goes alongside it. But I would also say, that underneath this, there is a significant program of what I describe as fixing the basics. If we want to become a global science superpower, we've got to have a machine that works, that it works from end to end and it's seamless. And, as I said earlier, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And right now, when you turn that machine on, you hear the gears clunking and, they are not efficient. And what these series of announcements were really a concerted effort by the government and by the constituent parts of life sciences to really make sure that this machine this machine works well. Biobank is one of the most globally recognized assets. Virtually every major institution and every pharmaceutical company around the world draws on the unique assets of Biobank. And I would put alongside Biobank now Our Future Health. If you haven't signed up for Our Future Health, please do so. We want 10% of the UK population to have within this database, basic genotypic, phenotypic data so that we can begin to build a map of the UK and where the health priorities are so that we can start to direct investment and diagnostic capabilities to where it is most needed. No other country can replicate Biobank and Our Future Health. The clinical trials network did not work. It does not work, especially on commercial clinical trials. James O'Shaughnessy has delivered a fundamentally changing report on how to improve the flow of clinical trials. It's no good saying that we've got great science if you can't prosecute the fruits of those science through clinical trials, through the NHS and the hospital system. If you go somewhere else, we've lost that deep connection between the science and the patient. And so the James O'Shaughnessy's report was really, really important. The government continues to invest in manufacturing to create new clusters. About a year ago, we announced the Stevenage cluster to make Stevenage a centre of cell and gene therapy manufacturing capability with an investment program around the Stevenage site. It fits very neatly into the Oxford, Cambridge, London network. We are in the process of reforming the MHRA and NICE, maybe not a very significant investment in monetary terms, but a very significant reorganisation underneath to move the UK in a post-Brexit world where we are now free to determine what our regulatory direction is, to move away from trying to replicate the big approval processes that the US FDA has or EMEA has in Europe on late-stage product approvals, to move the UK MHRA to where it needs to be an advisor, to be a regulator, and to be a partner in early-stage science. And we want the MHRA to become the world leader in how to approve and adopt complex scientific molecules that come out of genomic-based science. And then 250 million into pension schemes. Well, let me tell you, 250, if it's not 20 billion, by the end of this decade out of UK institutional resources, we will have not made the case of the potential and the wealth creation opportunities of this sector if we aren't driving substantial sums of money into life sciences. And just on a very back of the envelope exercise that the BIA did a few weeks ago, we estimate that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, just on existing companies that are in the UK today, with a need for scale-up capital, the demand could be anywhere between 15 and 20 billion pounds over the next 5 years. That money has got to come for the UK, because if it comes from the UK, that flow of investment, companies building and growing in the UK, when they want to decide to list, they're not going to be thinking of NASDAQ. We need to have them in the UK. So look at these initiatives in two ways. It's not just about money continuing to flow into the sector, but it is about a deep determination from all participants in this industry to make sure that the basics work. And I would absolutely include in that basics the availability of lab space and the infrastructure that is necessary. And fortunately, George Freeman was in Boston a few weeks ago, and And he was engaged with the Cambridge planning authorities, and what he could see there was a deep engagement between industry, academia, and the local communities on a 10-year plan for demand and supply. Can you imagine that here? We've got to have that. And if you know George, he doesn't forget things, and hopefully, we'll now start to put a bit more effort behind integrating planning and physical capacity alongside the scientific capacity. All of that is important, but where the real ambition lies in our life science community. It's not just to have a machine that works, but it's to have a machine that works to deliver real benefit, not just to the UK, but the global community. These 8 categories of diseases here, are the categories of the disease that dominate health spending. And not only do they dominate health spending, but the vast majority of the cost occurs after the age of 60, an increasing cost at the age of 70 and 80, and 20% of lifetime health costs occurring within the last 2 weeks. This is a curve that grows exponentially. If we don't grasp the scientific and therapeutic opportunities that lie behind these diseases, with an aging population around the world, the social cost and the productivity loss that comes from these diseases is colossal. So what is unique about the life science strategy is the ability to create end-to-end projects around these critical disease areas where we're bringing together, for the very first time, the entire community behind these diseases. We launched dementia a couple of weeks ago at number 10. It's led by a very eminent scientist, Nadeem Sarwar, and Hilary Evans from the Alzheimer's community, to make sure that we're building not just an understanding of the disease, but an understanding of the social consequences, mapping with the health service, with the providers of care, with the diagnostic companies, with the companies involved in neuroscience, and with the academic base, to have a clear understanding of what the end-to-end disease trajectory is for dementia, and to build scientific and care programs that begin to identify where in the cycle of disease do we need to optimally intervene in order to be able to flatten that end of care costs. And I have to say that the initial energy that's coming from dementia, similarly with mental health. We had a dinner for mental health a couple of weeks ago with the community, and there were representatives from the US, from both the NIH and from academia, saying this is just not possible in the US. How do we begin to partner with you to identify those therapeutic targets or those diagnostic tests that really get to the heart of the disease? If we can do this, and I believe that we, on the first examples that we can, then this is what, not only this is what will deliver the UK as a global science superpower, because we are doing the most meaningful and relevant scientific work for the world's health. But the beneficiary of this will be multiple. The ultimate beneficiary of this work will be the UK population. And if we can, through this, not only create wealth for an opportunity for this outstanding sector, and at the same time make the UK the healthiest population on the planet, then I think we will have delivered the task that we're sitting in this room to deliver, which is the UK as a global science superpower and delivering real patient benefit. So thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to have this opportunity to sort of give you some of these perspectives, but do not doubt our commitment to see this 10-year plan through to delivery And I think as you go through the panel sessions and the conversations as you go through the day, just think about how it's all starting to fit together as a coherent whole. We have got a lot of work to do, but there is nobody more determined than John and I to do this. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.